I can't talk about Defoe without being unbiased.
Yeah.
So.
See, and I can, and my feeling on the whole thing is this: Thierry Henry did the same thing with Arsenal last year. He's in there to practice. The club welcomes him with open arms. He wants to stay fit, getting ready for the new MLS season. I'm telling y'all, that's all this is. That is all it is.
And that's all it probably should be. I think the romantic part of us want him to come back and be our savior and bang in 20 goals in the second half of the season. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. How many did he bang in a lot at Toronto? I know he got off to a pretty fast.
He got off to a flyer. He got injured because we were all going to go see him in April in Frisco with FC Dallas, and that didn't happen. Then he came back, and he did score a few goals, but Toronto are just utter rubbish.
Yeah.
So I think Adebayor is rumored to be off to them. I know he's been shopped around MLS. If he goes to Toronto, good luck to him.
Yeah.
Just saw an interesting fact on Twitter. So Squawker Football at Squawker. Most passes completed in the Premier League this weekend. Number one with 98 passes, Tom Carroll.
Isn't that interesting?
Wow. And here's the irony in what we were just talking about. On 74, tied for fourth with Westwood, was Dembele.
Yeah.
Anyway, wrapping that up, what we got left on the docket, lad?
Let's talk about the book review. And Sam gets to wear the dunce cap and sit in the corner because he has unfortunately never read this book.
I'll be back in about 10 minutes.
And if Julie is listening to this one in preparation for her upcoming appearance, she's going to be having words with you, Sam.
And of course, we are talking about not so much the biography of Tottenham Hotspur, but the Bible of Tottenham Hotspur. The incredible story of the world-famous Spurs, written by Julie Welch, and a wonderful, very simplistic but very telling forward by Gary Mabbitt. If for those of you that have read this book, it is amazing. It covers everything. It covers things that I had not read about in about the other dozen or so books I had read before I had read this one, and by far she is my favorite author, ghostwriter, co-author of all of the Tottenham literature that I have read, and I cannot wait to talk to her in person. But Simon, I want to start with you on this one because obviously you have much more insight than I do, and I want your feeling on this book.
When this book came out, I don't want to say I was skeptical of it. I've read a lot of books that have focused on the history of Spurs, and some of them are very matter of fact. This one was a pleasant read because Julie, being dyed-in-the-wool Spurs supporter all her life, really puts a spin on the book that is refreshing. Granted, yes, it's got a Tottenham slight, and it's got the leanings of a Spurs supporter, and that's okay because I don't think too many Arsenal fans are going to read this book. And it was such a gripping story from the very beginning, the humble beginnings of the schoolboys under the lamp on the Tottenham High Road, figuring out what they wanted to do with their winters. And from there it just snowballs into the history, and it picks up on the highlights, the lowlights we've had through the history. It goes all the way through, I believe, the first half of the 2012-13 season, and it is just an enthralling read. It's upbeat. It's a book that you won't put down. It's almost like reading a novel because the way Julie writes, it compels you to just to read more. Unlike some, as I said earlier, matter-of-fact books that, okay, well, I'll get to that when I want to. This was a book that I read very, very quickly, and it blew me away at how well written it was.
Yeah.
And I would certainly recommend it to any American Spurs fan who wants to know more about the club. And I think Kenna probably recommended it to you as one of the first books to read when you'd plumped for Spurs in the last couple of seasons. And it was a book, and you probably rightly backed me up on this, that really endorsed that decision of yours. So again, any new Spurs fan out there, if you want to read a book that will define the club for you in one volume, that is the book we strongly recommend.
This book, I got to be honest with everybody, I'm not a huge reader. I have to be fully invested in the subject matter, and of course I am with Spurs. So when I started reading more about Spurs, I wanted to do it through literature and not so much through the visual medium. And I will tell her this, and it's not just because she's going to come on the show and be with us. I've read 20, 25 or so books, some that I have, some that I've borrowed, some that I've checked out, whatever the case is. When I got to the last, I don't know, quarter or so of this book, I took the book, went to a Starbucks, grabbed a coffee, started reading. I never drunk my coffee. I read the last 75, 80 pages of this and was in tears. That's how well written this book is. It takes you through such an emotional time, through the Champions League run, and I wasn't in tears because I was sad. I was in tears because I was proud that I had made the right decision in choosing Tottenham as my team. If you do not have this book, please go get it. Please read it. It is an emotional connection to the club from someone who lived through it during a very pivotal time in Spurs history, through the double side, through the shock and horror of what was, some of those 70s and 80s seasons, and through the glory of all the cup runs. And she does, it's just a masterful job at detailing everything without getting so convoluted that you lose its interest. Everything keeps its luster, and it is the Bible of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. It's a must-read for every fan.
Yeah, it's not all roses and lovely stories. She criticizes where she has to, and she talks about the what could have beens, and it's very realistically written. She's certainly picked out her heroes. I was just looking at the photos in the book. Not a lot of photos. Some that you've probably seen. There's a few you haven't, but in a nutshell, just the photographs cover the span that is in the book, ending with Dempsey's winning goal at Old Trafford, which was in the final season that she writes about in the book. So definitely worth a read. It is available on Amazon over here. I think you can get it for about $28.
Just got it on my Kindle before the show. It will be read before Julie comes on.
I think one of the most interesting things that she talks about in the book really didn't have a whole lot to do with football. It was during the 40s and 50s, there were stories of, especially right around the Battle of Britain era, 1,600 people or so, and that's it, in White Hart Lane to watch a match when the bombings started. Match delayed for 15 minutes. Everything kind of sounded cool. Match is going on. You hear a missile fly right over the stadium or whatever it was. It had you so riveted, and like I said, it doesn't get overbearing. It's just so detail oriented, very, very well written. I know Simon has kept a lot of newspaper articles and things from the past. I cannot wait to flip through that book, by the way. I meant to do that the other day, and I everything just kind of ended the way it ended with Palace, and I was done. I love her to death. I love the writing to death. I have not seen the movie that she made because I can't find the damn thing to where I can play it on American-based recording and viewing equipment. I know that Simon says I can go rent that machine somewhere.
Well, you can actually get it on Netflix. It's in my Netflix queue.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. This week I've moved it up to the top. I've dragged my backside on that. So with Julie coming on the show, I definitely wanted to ensure that I've gotten around to watching it.
Good deal.
All right. So what's the last thing? I had a shout out. I guess it's shout out time, right, guys?
Yeah.
So we mentioned earlier that I was going to shout out to Davey Elder, who's also known as the Spurs Poet, at the Spurs Poet on Twitter. You can also find him on Facebook as the Spurs Poet. He actually composed a poem for Dallas Spurs a few weeks back, which we were very proud to have that honor. So thank you for that. But he wanted us to mention he's got a Steve Perryman night coming up on June the 19th. It's at the Ross Park Hotel in Kells, County Antrim, Northern Ireland. It is going to be hosted by the world famous Richard Cracknell. It's 25 quid a ticket.
Another legend.
There's going to be a lot of Spurs items for sale on the evening. If you go to at the Spurs Poet, you will see on his profile picture on Twitter there's further details about this, and otherwise please reach out to him. So anyone that's planning to go overseas and was having a summer holiday in Ireland, since school's out for us, at the end of May, beginning of June. This is until June 19th. You could pop over and see the great Steve Perryman in person. Fantastic guy. We mentioned him a couple of weeks ago when it was his birthday. And this would be a great event. Sorry, I don't think it's in my plans this summer, but I do definitely want to see one of these Legends Nights coming up. So big shout out to Davey. Well done, mate.
Yeah, very well done. And looking forward to having Davey on the show soon, too. I think he's agreed to do that whenever he said whenever we're ready to have him on, he'd love to come on, and we'll try to get the logistics worked out. Again, it's difficult, 6, sometimes 7-hour time difference, depending on where the person's located, but we will work those things. I know that our listeners, those of you that are out there, would love to hear these people. Their stories are telling. I've heard them on other podcasts, other news articles they're writing. It's just wonderful. I'm still kind of in shock that I'm kind of a part of this whole thing, and it's just kind of neat that it's going to happen. And so I'm really looking forward to it. These events, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that put these events together. I know that Davey is part of a group that does these things in Ireland. There are people that behind the scenes that work along with Julie and some other people that put these things together in Britain. If you ever get the opportunity to go, I know that there's something taking place when I'm supposed to be over there in May. I think just before you get there, Simon, with Via and Ardias in Wales. So I might make a little side trip over. I think that's on the Monday night that I'm going to be there, the first Monday night that I'm going to be there in May. Then on the 9th, I believe. So I may try to make that one. We'll see. But these events are certainly worth going to. Also, we got a follow on Twitter this week for the podcast from one Mr. Brad Friedel. That was kind of cool. That is, I think, our first current player. And, of course, we all kind of know that Brad will follow in the footsteps of Ledley King as far as being a club ambassador and whatnot, so maybe this is a step towards that. Good Lord willing, we'll have Mr. Friedel on the show one day, maybe after the season ends. We'll see.
Oh, that'd be magic.
Sam?
Suit you, sir.
No, I kind of intermittently spread a few out, so I am done. I'm gonna one really quick one. I'm gonna shout out Freddie Fazio for pushing over Fraser Campbell for that Bollox against Laurie. That's all I've got.
Yeah,
that was great. I love that. I love to see that, some spirit. So
yeah, and the boys need to stand up for one another. So
yep.
I like that.
Yeah, I got nothing. That's it for me.
Me too.
For me. I want this winter to be over with so we can talk about what we did.
Just remember, it's been a rough week kind of with the Burnley thing, and we had to do a replay in Palace, but as a great British punk band once said, "Nevermind the Bollox. It'll be all right. It'll be okay, guys." So that's going to do it for us. For Sam and Simon, I'm Ken.
And I'm Sam and Ken. In there, son.
I'm in there, buddy. And for the rest of you guys, be kind to one another. Unless the other guy's wearing red.
Wankers.